Hello, my name is Austin Osborne, and today I'm going to be presenting NestEgg, my final project for the Educational Technology class in the OMSCS program. I'd like to start by explaining what NestEgg is and the goal that it's trying to achieve. It's a web-based video game designed to improve financial literacy and teach healthy financial habits to middle school and high school level students. It's not restricted to those particular audiences, but it is definitely designed with them in mind. The main game mechanic is that NestEgg provides a sandbox environment giving players choices and prompts in realistic lifelike situations, allowing them to understand consequences of their actions and build healthy financial behaviors. So the impetus for this project came from a lot of my background research, and I came across a lot of different statistics about financial behaviors in the United States in particular, and two statistics stuck out to me. 44% of Americans don't have enough cash on hand to cover a $400 emergency, and 33% of American adults have saved no money for retirement. Now, that's obviously a major problem, and there are a lot of third-party companies and government agencies trying to fix this problem in actually a similar way. So I've gotten these three examples that I think are fairly indicative of the overall market of tools trying to solve this problem. And I'd like to start on the left with Chair the Fed. Now, Chair the Fed is a role-playing game which allows the player to assume the role of the chairman of the Federal Reserve. It's a very educational game, and it allows you to see the effects on a macroeconomic level. Now, the problem with it is you can see the interface is very gray. It's not directed really toward a younger audience, which may alienate them and cause them not to want to play the game or not want to move forward. So one of the problems that it has is in its intrinsic design and interface design. There are a lot of games like the one in the center, Counting Money, which are sort of math games disguised as finance games. This one in particular is about determining how much actual value is in a given picture based on the number of coins and bills and things like that. This game obviously is directed more towards children, but it's again not focused on financial principles. It's more about math and understanding value. The last type of game that I saw quite a bit was the quiz. Quizzes, I personally feel, focus on acquiring knowledge and facts rather than building habits. And so, yes, you may learn what is the average rate of return on an investment or something like that, but it's not going to teach you healthy financial habits. And so with that in mind, I decided to create NestEgg based on four basic principles. First, I wanted to create a fun and engaging experience. If no one is going to want to play the game, it doesn't matter how educational it is, the effectiveness will be severely limited. So I made sure to make all the assets at least fun, font choice should be fun, and I wanted to keep people engaged throughout the experience. The second principle focused around teaching behaviors and not trivia. Again, I wanted to focus on building healthy habits based on certain situations. The exact course of action that you take is not always going to be the same, but the basic principles will always apply. So save when you can, save early and save often, things like that. I wanted to teach those sorts of principles rather than facts and other trivia. My third principle was that choices aren't wrong, they're just different. I didn't want to guide players down one particular path because life has a ton of different variables and I couldn't possibly account for all of them. I wanted people to see how different combinations of choices can still result in them winning. The goal of NestEgg is not winning or losing, it is seeing how different combinations of choices affect your long-term financial, emotional, and healthy well-being. So that was one of the major principles that I used in designing my prompts. And then the last one was about keeping realism in mind. So this is a little bit of a tough line because it flies in the face of the first principle a little bit. So we had to be careful on how realistic the game was, but also making sure that the prompts did have some semblance of realism and that players would be able to recognize these situations that come up in their real life. I want to talk a little bit about the actual architecture. The entire game is hosted on Amazon Web Services. And one of the main cruxes of the game is that it's broken up into phases. I've done this because players will see in their real life and in NestEgg that in college, for instance, they're going to have a lot different situations than their situations when they're 45 or 55 and late in their career. So all phases are broken up into all prompts, are broken up into different phases that go across the entire life of the player. So in college, I have a certain number of prompts, and the game flows at a certain speed. And then in the early career, the game flows at a slightly faster speed. Near the end of the career, it speeds up a little bit more. And all that is designed to keep the player engaged. It uses a relational data store hosted on AWS. I have a Lambda API built mainly for scalability. And the client I have right now is a web application built in React, but the architecture will lend itself to a mobile version of the game in the future, where I believe that this game will actually have its most wide-reaching appeal. On this page, I'd like to talk about some of the features that NestEgg has. So you're looking at an actual screen grab right now from the game. On the left, you can see the player statuses. These are always visible. You can see your bank account, health, happiness, performance, salary, investments, and costs like mortgages and things like that. Performance is a particularly interesting one. It affects every piece of the game. So job offers that you get, companies trying to poach you, promotions, and a lot of the game mechanics are tied into that performance. So you can't neglect, for instance, studying in college to do a whole bunch of part-time jobs to just keep your finances high. So there's a lot of aspects to the game that the mechanics tie into each other, and not everything is as cut and dry as always choose the more cost-effective option or always choose the option that makes you more healthy or happy. The prompts are also fully random and dynamic, which allows for increased replayability. And as I mentioned before, it's all tied into the current phase of life the player is in. There's another feature called Road to Retirement, which is actually how the game's timescale works. So you start at 18 and go till 65, and between that entire point, all choices are yours. So the second you graduate high school, you're able to go to college, you can do a startup, you can go directly into industry, and all of that will be affecting your performance and will affect the type of career trajectory that you see. And so as you progress toward this road to retirement, once you hit 65, the game's over, and then you receive essentially a score that was aggregated from all of your statuses up to that point. The last thing I wanted to mention is the tips section. This was very, very important to the actual education aspect. In the bottom portion of the screen, there's a blue box that will display some information about the question and prompt that's being asked to you at the moment. It's not designed to give players the answer, it's just designed to provide additional context for what they're looking at so that they can make their own informed decision based on the stage that they are at currently in the game. So it might be explaining what a 401k is or how it's applied or how it could be helpful for your retirement, but it's not saying definitely take the 401k, things like that. So as I've mentioned, the current iteration is designed for desktop, but it's absolutely extensible to other devices as well. And the current design actually is viewable on a tablet or a phone, but I believe that this would lend itself very, very well to a native mobile application in the future. I did some user testing with this application, and this was one of the pieces of feedback that I received from another classmate that I found particularly interesting. He said that personal finance was an important topic that didn't get much attention in high school, and he thinks that this application is really useful for many people, including myself. And this really struck me because this was really the impetus for me to make this project. I also did not have very much personal finance education in high school, and so I'm glad that this sort of line of thinking resonated with some of the players. I wanted to close out by showing a few statistics about the game. There are over 60 prompts that I've put in at this point, so you're not going to see all of them in any one run, but they're very easy to add additional prompts as well, so this game is very extensible. There are 13 status effects that are being tracked, some of which are being shown to the user, some of which are not. There are 10 total phases that the user can progress through. Optionally, there are a wide array of number of phases a player can go through in any one playthrough. And the total cost to host the game is only $14.72 per month. And so thank you very much. This was NestEgg, and I hope to see you playing in the future.